Anders is a very divisive character. Most people either love him or hate him. Personally, I lean towards loving him as I think he is very interesting and has a lot of good qualities and a character I find appealing. I also think he is overall a good person. That is not to say he is without faults, just that I believe his merits outweigh said faults. The most divisive part of his character boils down to one specific action he takes at the end of Act 3 in Dragon Age 2, the Chantry explosion. There is a large part of the fandom that believes this action entirely defines him, choosing to ignore the rest of his part in the old game. But anyone actually paying attention to this character beyond this single event and the setting in general would know that Anders blowing up the Chantry does not exist in a vacuum. There is a reason the quest is called The Last Straw. It is the last effort of a desperate man in the face of oppression. Anders spends the entirety of the game up to The Last Straw working to out mages and protest the Chantry's abuses peacefully. He works with the Mage Underground to help people escape from the gallows. He writes his manifestos demanding an end to the oppression of his people. He tries speaking to the Grand Cleric, and not one bit of it makes any monumental change because no one in power will listen. Despite all efforts, he still witnesses the mass increase in the use of the Red of Tranquility on mages who have passed their arrowing even. This is supposed to be against Chantry law, but no one has stopped it from happening. He witnesses raids on the families of mages and the formation of what is called Templar death squads, harassing low-town inhabitants who sympathize with the mages. None of this is a secret. The citizens of Kirkwall are well aware of these abuses, and many of them are vocally against it. But the Chantry doesn't care about that. They only care about maintaining the status quo of control and domination. This is fully demonstrated by the Divine sending Liliana to warn Altina that the Chantry is considering an exalted march on Kirkwall. Because in Liliana's words, they fear the threat of a mage uprising is the biggest danger to Theta since the Canary invasion. Altina even somewhat defends this, saying that even if it will harm innocents, the Divine's first duty is to, quote, protect the faith. Anders tried peaceful measures to protest the Circle's abuses. Orsino tried peaceful measures to protest the Circle's abuses too, but these peaceful protests are met with worsening conditions, not the betterment. At the beginning of Act 3, as in before Anders even gets his magical bomb ready, Knight Commander Meredith has already gone above Altina's head to request a rate of annulment directly from Val Royeaux. It is established in Dragon Age Origins that a letter is all it takes to grant permission to slaughter every single mage in a circle when Gregor writes to Denerim for the same request. Another example of no actual investigation prior to granting this rate is from the Mage Hunter Shield item description in Dragon Age Inquisition. This item description states that it wasn't until after the raid was conducted and all the mages were slaughtered that the Seekers of Truth discovered the annulment was used to cover up the mass murder of mages that had already occurred before permission was granted. Backed into a corner, Anders lashes out in the only way he can think of to force change. The fact that Meredith has already sent for the rate of annulment means in all likeliness, Anders saved lives by acting when he did. This allows the mages the opportunity to fight back and for some to escape. Is Anders a murderer? Yes, but so is every single character in the Kirkwall party. Even Sebastian has killed people in his quest for revenge against those who murdered his family. How does that separate him from Anders doing the same against those who are torturing, mutilating, and killing his people? The Chantry is not innocent. Altina is not innocent. She is a perpetrator at worst and enabler at best of systemic oppression. It is within her power to oppose Meredith. As Grand Cleric, she is in fact the only person with any power to do so in Kirkwall, but she chooses not to. The only action she takes is to silence Orsino's right to speak publicly. It makes perfect sense to me for Anders to target her. Why did Anders choose to target Altina by blowing up the Chantry itself, though? The out-of-universe reason, I believe, is simply that the developers wanted to trigger a gut-punch reaction to Americans with the imagery of an exploding building. BioWare is very centrist and has a strong history of making both sides are wrong arguments out of oppressors versus the oppressed. The goal of making Anders do this is to turn off the player's brain enough to place doubt in the mages and think the Templar Order might be right even a little, despite all evidence to the contrary. The in-universe reason is just that between the two targets, the Chantry and the Gallows, attacking the Chantry has less collateral damage to the mages in Anders' view, I suppose? But it's hard for me to put reason behind this when it's so overshadowed by outside influence that feels less organically part of the plot and more shoved in for the sake of pushing their centrist agenda. What really drives home for me that it's an agenda is the fact that post-Dragon Age 2, they keep adding more to what happened. First, they increased the death toll way beyond anything actually suggested in the game. Then in Trespasser, they even write a codex entry saying the explosion changed the shape of the Kirkwall Zarbor somehow. I can't help but find it at least a little amusing and look forward to hearing how actually the explosion unleashed another blade upon the Free Marches next. If you want to call Anders a terrorist, fine. I don't give a shit, because frankly, I can think of so many real-life people who have been called terrorists by the government for standing up against colonial enforced inequality, to the point where I question the very meaning of the word. But I ask you go do it somewhere else, because I'm kinda tired of the fandom debate over the Chantry explosion controversy. I've said my piece, and I'm confident in my opinion. More confident than BioWare is able to sway me otherwise, that's for damn sure.